Hi guys, welcome to For Those Who Code. In this video, we'll be learning about latest JavaScript features we can use today, which includes features introduced in ECMAScript 2019 and 2020. So let's get started. If you guys are wondering about what is ECMAScript, it's simply the standard upon which JavaScript is based, and it's often abbreviated to ES. This is the official website of ECMA, which looks a bit classy, but anyway. Technical Committee 39, TC39, the body in charge of developing the ECMAScript standard, has been releasing a new edition of standard every year. Currently, we are looking at the proposals for the future release and past releases, which I will also share the link below. In the year 2019, this released ES10, and in 2020 they will release ES11, which is not released yet. We can also identify the release year of ECMAScript by reducing 1 from ES edition, which means if it's ES10, it's introduced in 2019, and if it's ES9, then it's introduced in 2018 respectively. So without any delay, let's see what's coming up in 2020. The first feature we will discuss about is String.prototype.matchAll, which I have written in the first line and commented. The code will be provided in the video down below, and behind the scene I'm using Partial for my hot reloading as well. And Partial is nothing but a web application bundler, and I'll leave up to you to research about Partial and explore more. But for now, it just helps in hot reloading our files. So we had a similar kind of method called match, which behaves identical to the newly introduced method. But what's wrong with the match method? Actually, it's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong to it. Let's write our code and understand what's going on. Firstly, let's create a constant and name it something like str, and write some value like string1, string2. Alright, and create another constant where we will have some regex. Let's call it regex validation 1, and we will have some regex over here, and console log the matched values from the regex with the match method. Now, what we can see here is it returned string1 and string2 inside an array. So now let's try with String.prototype.matchAll. So we'll create a constant and name it string, and give it the same value that we wrote before, and also make another constant where we have regex validation 2, and copy down the same regex and paste it here. Now create another constant where we will have our values stored after we match all, and pass down regex validation 2 over here. So along with the match all method, we need a for loop where we will be looping through the string of matches, and console log the value of string. So now, unlike the match method, which returns an array on global search, matchAll returned an iterator that works perfectly with for of loop. right here. So it's important to note that although the match method can be used with the global flag G that we passed or wrote here in our regex, which helps us to access all the matches, it doesn't provide capturing groups or index position of the match. It doesn't have index and the groups right here. So as we see in the console here, the iterator produces an array of each match, including the capturing group with few extra values, which really helps. So now let's move on to the next feature. So now let's discuss about another feature. It's called private class variable. So let's make a class and name it purchase, and inside here we'll use our hash symbol and declare a variable named discount and give it a value of 100. Now let's make another function where we will console log the value deducting 200, or let's say 20, from this dot discount. So now let's create another constant, name it goods, and lastly let's invoke that function which we made named payment. Now before we execute the code, this code it doesn't support in our browsers yet. I even tried with Node Terminal and Node CLI, but it's not completely supported. Let's save it and execute. Now what we see is unexpected character error, but if we copy this code and commented this out and paste it over here and see the result, it actually works. 100 minus 20 is 80, which is really great. But actually the sad thing is the browsers are not ready enough to use these features right now. So let's hope these features will be shipped inside our browser anytime soon. So let's move on to another feature. So now let's discuss about another feature that's coming. It's Promise.allSettled. Actually, promises in JavaScript was introduced in ES6, which supported two promise combination, Promise.all and Promise.race. Now we have Promise.allSettled. With this new method introduced, we can create a new promise that only comes back when all the promises that have been passed and completed. So hence it will give us the access to a matrix which the data of each promise provides. So let's see in code. So let's create a constant, name it promise1. Now let's create a setTimeout function inside this one so that we can just pretend something is going on, and let's give it 1 second or 1000 millisecond, and let's place a comma. So in the constant with promise2 and new promise, resolve or reject, and create timeout and fake something is going on and resolve it in 3000 millisecond or 3 seconds. So now after all, we can write Promise.allSettled and write down our two promise names over here. One is promise 1 and another one is promise 2, and write then data and console log the data itself. So let's save it. So actually it took 3 seconds for the promise to resolve or reject. So as we can see here, it returned back the all promises that's passed and completed, and hence it gave us access to the matrix after each promise. So it's really helpful and a good feature which is added. So now let's discuss about another feature coming. Another feature is BigInt. BigInt is a built-in object which provides us a new way to represent whole new numbers, which can be larger than 2 to the power 53 minus 1. Before, JavaScript has a strict limitation with fixed range of numbers and cannot be operated with large integers properly. So let's write some code and understand BigInt. So first of all, let's console log the value and see what is the max safe integer. So it's right here printed. So now let's create a constant and name it maxInt, where we will assign this constant this one, and console log the value where we will have maxInt plus 1. So uncomment or comment this one, and we can see it 992. So before it was 991 and we added 1. So now let's console log maxInt plus 10. So it's let's see the last digit 1000. So actually this is an incorrect value. Why? Because it cannot operate with large integers properly. So BigInt comes here into play. So with BigInt we can have the word n at the end of the number. So we can get around with this new BigInt data type by adding the letter n at the end of the number. So let's try this one. Let's make a constant and my big number and write down the same value here. Alright, and write n as well. So now let's console log the value, my big number plus 10n. So save it. Now as you can see here, we actually got a correct value with our n word. or letter n. So actually this is supporting a large integer properly. Now we don't have any strict limitation with a fixed range of numbers and cannot operate, or let's say can operate, with large integers properly. With this one we can get the larger value as well, so we can exceed the max safe integer. Another feature that's coming, it's optional chaining operator. So long chain of property can be really prone to errors. The optional chaining operator provides a simple way to access values through connected objects, when it's possible that the reference or function may be undefined or null. So let's take a look at the code to see example. So let's write some object and write another object inside it, and its dishes, and plates would be 3. So let plates is equal to food, or let's say let and console log the food dot dishes dot plates, then we must get 3 because we are just accessing the object, so we get 3. So now let's take another example so that we will be clear about optional chaining operator. So foo, and then create another object named dishes, and the first dish would be Asian, and second is Mexican. Alright, so now previously, if we don't have optional chaining operator, in case of optional chaining operator was not introduced, we should have something like food dot, let's place this value over there in food. Now we should check our values whether the value is undefined or null beforehand. So food null, or food undefined then it's undefined, else it is food. So food dot, this should be SEC, oh, and the second, so food dot second. Alright, so now let's console log our nested food. The foo is already used, so let's comment this out, and can read property dishes of undefined. So dishes food, this would be foo. So here we can see Mexican. If there is no Mexican, then we see it's undefined. So optional chaining operator helps us if it's the foo is initially null or undefined, then it's undefined, else it's foo dot second, or we can write foo dot first. And get access to Asian here. So to have a clear understanding, let's take another example. So let's copy this and comment out this one. So let's add another second and add Mexican over here. So now let food or foo now let's have nested food and access the object food dirt first and write second here and console log the nested food. So as you can see, we don't have to check whether it's undefined, null and everything like we did in up here. So this is the old approach, but with this new approach we don't have to check whether the value that we are accessing is undefined or not. So this optional chaining operator permits reading the value of properly located deep within the chain of connected objects. So the expression short circuits with a return value of undefined. So it's rather easy for us to understand whether the cause of the error is reference is nullish, null or undefined. Now another feature we'll discuss about is dynamic import. This particular feature is not supported by browsers. So though it's not supported, we'll have a look at how dynamic import works. So first of all, I will write down a constant which performs multiplication. And it's an asynchronous function which takes two parameters, num1 and num2. And let's use a far function, and if num1 and num2, then we make another constant and name it mult, and what we can do is we can await and import another file that's inside our folder structure and import it asynchronously inside a function, not in the top but inside a function. That's what this features helps us. So import, and let's write, first of all I think we should make a folder or file name, let's call it multiply. So we'll have these two parameters from that specific file. So now, and console log mult dot multiply 5 and 10. Now invoke perform multiplication function with these two parameters right here. So before executing our code, which we told it doesn't work, we will go ahead and create another file called multiply.js. I think the file we wrote over here, it should be here. Yeah. So inside here we will make another constant, name it multiply, and then which we imported here, multiply. So multiply two numbers, sorry, it's not an object, but number 1 and number 2, where number 1 multiplied by number 2, and export multiply. All right. Yeah. So what we are doing is something correct in a sense. So what we're doing is exporting this particular let's see function, and then we can use this particular function inside of an asynchronous action that we created right here. So it awaits for this particular file to load, and it's going to log the multiply between 5 and 4, and we invoke this particular function over here. So I think this should work, but we have some errors, and I even tried this particular specific code inside a node CLI as well, but it still returns an error. So it's not fully supported in all the browsers. So I think you got the concept of importing dynamic imports, not always on the top, but also asynchronously in the middle of the code as well. So another feature that's coming, it's Nullish Collash operator. So it can be represented with two question mark symbol as well. As JavaScript is a dynamically typed language, we will need to keep JavaScript's treatment of truth and false values in mind as well. During assigning the value, the Nullish collaging operator returns the signs of the right side of expression. If the left side of expression is either null or undefined, it returns the value of the right side. So the main thing that we need to understand is it returns the right hand side operand if the left hand side operand is null or undefined. Otherwise, left side. So the main point to understand is right here. So I took some time to write it inside comments. So let's get into code and understand it a bit more. So first of all, let's define name, and I won't assign it a value. So console log the name with this operator and anonymous. So it returns anonymous. Why? Because the left one is null or undefined. So we'll return the right hand side operand if the left hand side is null or undefined. So we have not defined this value. So if we define this value, let's say a string named John, then it returns the value of the left hand side, John. So let's take another example. let new name is empty string, and console log the new name, and then write no name. It returns John. Sorry, it returns nothing, as it returned this one right here. So it's an empty string. If we write null over here, it returns no name, and if we write undefined here, it returns no name as well. So this particular line is the what we need to understand. So let's comment this out as well. So right here, let's write another new name is empty, and console log new name, and it's a pipe symbol, so it returns true. Whereas if we copy this one and right here, it returns the value of the left, which is here, left. Now what's going behind is the knowledge collecting operator, represented by double question mark. It's a short-circuiting operator like and or this pipe symbol. So actually we can use either this symbol, or this symbol to return the value that we want. But the difference is, other than the falsy values, empty string, 0, false, none, we still return the left hand operand with the comparison of null collecting operator. So now for clear understanding, let's take another example. Let's comment this out as well. New name 2, and it's and console log new name, new name 2, and use null collecting operator and save it. We don't need anything here, and it returns the left hand side. So now let person, it's an object with profile as the nested object inside, and name, which is null initially, and age, let's say it's 0. So now let's console log the value person dot profile dot name, and use a pipe symbol and write not disclosed, and same goes to age as well. And here we can see that it returns not disclosed, which is person, profile, name, person, profile, and name, which is null. So that's why it's not disclose. If we write this particular console with this null collision operator, then it returns not disclosed and 0, because we have defined null and here is null as well. So it all goes to this definition right here. So we can use this particular null collision operator alongside with our async await, or let's say await and fetch as well. Now guys, let's discuss what we had in 2019 for ES10. The first feature I would like to discuss about is Array.flat. The flat method creates a new array with all the sub-array elements concatenated up to a specified depth into one. So let's first write with the old version of ES6 before ES6 was introduced. For that, I will make a constant and name it lang and pass down some multidimensional array inside an array. So write some languages over here. We can write Go, Rust, or maybe JavaScript as well, and then make another constant and name it make.flat and use a method introduced before ES6 called concat, and we can apply the concatenation to our constant we made here. So let's console log make.flat and let's see what comes up. So what we can see here in the console is it just spits out a single array. So now let's talk about Array.flat, which works in a similar way, but it's now easy for us to handle these kind of multidimensional array inside array. So let's create a constant, name it language1, and we will have name of some languages like Python, Go, and inside here we'll have another array and we will again have another array inside this array as well. So now let's console log our language1 dot flat alongside with an optional parameter of 0. So now as you can see that we had array inside array inside array, so it's a multidimensional array. So it spits out an array, but inside that array we have another array. So inside Python, Go, JavaScript, Dart, we have two arrays inside it. So how can we handle this kind of situation? So it's pretty simple with Array.flat. We'll write 2 and 2 over here and pass down optional argument or argument as 1. As you can see that we had an array of 3 over here, but now it's reduced to 2. So here we have actually a multi-level deep of array where we needed to write some recursive function before, but now Array.flat method provides us with awesome feature that we don't need to have and use recursive functions. And we can also see that the method executes and can be really helpful if we have something called slots, empty slots inside array as well. So it just ignores the empty slots as well. So now let's handle this situation where we can spit out a single array, not these nested arrays. So in that scenario, what we can do is we can write something like infinity, which spits out array of infinity levels. So as we can see, it spits out a single array here. So it's really helpful in a scenario where we have a really deep label and nested labels of arrays. So now let's learn about another feature called Array.flatMap method. Well, this method combines both map method and flat method into one method, and it sets a callback function with a default depth of 1. So now let's get into code and understand about this particular method. Before taking our look inside .flatMap, we will just write our code with just using .flat and .map. So before that, I will create a constant named countries, where we will have an array of strings and name our countries. And we will create another constant and name it food. And we will have a string of some food, burger, or maybe fries as well. Okay, now create another constant. We will name it mapped. Inside here we will have our countries dot map and take countries and index of each country and use a flat arrow countries comma food and the index of food. So now let's console log the mapped and see what we have got. As you can see, we looped over our array and it spits out the index as well. So now let's use our flat method with the mapped array constant over here and see, well, it spits out our array concatenated into one. So now let's write our code with Array.flatMap. So we will create another constant and name it mapped and flattened, and we will take countries and use our method flatMap and write down the same with the flatMap method. And now if we just console log the mapped and flattened, then we can see our array is printed out in the console, and which is similar to what we have wrote using flat and map. So I think this makes sense to you that Array.flatMap is really helpful for us to loop over and map through the indexes of our array and flatten the array. Let's now discuss about another feature, String.trimStart and String.trimEnd. This method, as it says, removes white space from beginning or an end of a string. I still wonder why they introduced this particular feature despite we have .trim method. But anyway, let's write a constant and use template literals to add some space and write I love JavaScript and console log our message with trimStart method. So as you can see that our first spaces before our string is gone, and now it doesn't have any spaces before. Now let's write the same thing with message2 and then console log message2 with trimEnd. Method. So as you can see that it trims the space at the end of the string. A similar goes to trimStart. Trims them spaces before the string. So we can also write trim as well. Now the next feature is optional catch binding. Well, the catch binding in try and catch block required to have an exceptional variable bind to catch clause, but we can now completely ignore the error parameter inside the catch block now. So let's get into code to understand this feature. So for that I will write a try block where we will throw an error and write down some error. So in the catch block, before what we needed to catch is the optional catch clause, or to say the parameter inside the catch block, that's E. So console log E, and what we can see here is some error. So let's try it without this parameter, which clearly says optional catch binding. So it's optional to place the parameter for the try catch block now. Now let's write another try catch where we will throw the same error, let's see, or we can have any API call and have a catch as well, and console log no parameters added, and let's remove this one as well. And as we can see that no parameters added has been printed out. It clearly says that now we can completely ignore the error parameter inside our catch block. Let's now discuss about another feature called toString method. Now toString method returns the source text sliced from the beginning of the first to the last, including spaces as well. To understand this method, let's first create a function, and we'll have some dummy lines here and name this some function, and another line here. So now let's console log some function along with the toString method and see what's the result. Now as we can see that it's printed like the source text slice from the beginning to an end, including the comments and all the spaces also added. So now let's create another function where we will console log something inside our template literals and console log my function along with toString. Now as you can see that it prints out the function as a whole as well, and even including the spaces as well. So toString method returns source text slice from beginning to an end, including spaces as well. Now another feature I would like to talk and discuss about is JSON.Stringify. Well, ES before ES10 does not fully support JSON format. With the new method, we can return well-formed Unicode strings. Where before UTF-8 code, it returned some malformed. Where before UTF-8 code, it returned some malformed Unicode character. To understand this, let's write a constant and name str, where we will stringify a UTF-8 code and console log our str. As you can see, it correctly prints out the UTF-8 character. So create another constant and name it str2, and we will use JSON.Stringify our character. Actually, D800 and console log str2. So as you can see that it correctly now prints out the UTF-8 code, whereas previously it had some malformed Unicode character. Now let's discuss about the next useful feature for us in ES2019. So previously implementation of V8 used an unstable quicksort algorithm for arrays containing more than 10 items. So we have a new feature called Array.Sort Stability, which helps to sort the arrays in much quicker way. So but now in ES10 it offers a more stable way of dealing with arrays. Stable sorting means two elements in an array with the same sort value will appear in the same order in the output array, which was not the case before ES2019. So let's write some code and understand what's the major difference that we have. For that, I'll create a constant name it countries, and it will be an array where we will paste down some objects with key value pairs along with the count and the name. So now let's take a scenario and mimic table sorting in 2019. I mean before 2019. So in that case and scenario, we needed to map our countries with the index first, like countries.map and write count and index, and count.index is index, and return count. Okay, now in order to sort it, we needed to write sort, suppose a comma b, and then use a fat arrow and check whether a dot count is strictly is equal to b dot count, and if yes, then we return a dot index subtract is to b dot index, and if not, then return a dot count b dot count, and console log our countries. So as you can see that it's now sorted with the count values 1, 3, 4, 10, 15, 19, 20. So this is the case of the feature introduced, I mean before 2019. Now let's take a scenario and write this much of code into just few lines of code. Now for that, I will create a constant and write sort another, which is countries dot sort and a comma b, and then use a fat arrow and write a dot count minus b dot count. And console log our sort another. As you can see that we have the count sorted in our perfect way. So with these few lines of code, then we can achieve our sorting much easier now. So this feature is really helpful to us developers, that now we have a correct sorting to the order that we have, whereas we needed to write our own sorting criteria earlier than ES2019. Now another feature I would like to discuss about is Symbol.description. A symbol generally in JavaScript is a primitive data type of JavaScript itself. So along with the string, number, boolean, null and undefined, it's a primitive data type. Once we create a symbol, its value is kept private for internal use only. They are now often used to identify object properties. Now when creating a symbol, we can add a description to it for debugging purposes. So now let's create my symbol and write a new symbol here. So now if we console.log my symbol.description, then what we can get is the new symbol. So here in our code, the read-only description property is a string which returns the optional description of the symbol object. So guys, these are some of the features that we need to know for 2019 and for upcoming 2020. So thank you all for watching my videos. If you guys want to learn more about code, design and anything more, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. I'll be trying to make my videos more better in upcoming days. See you in the next one.